Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Dave Day. Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are joining us from. Hope you had a great session so far. I'm Kunal Savarkar. I'm distinguished engineer from IBM's client engineering and ecosystem engineering team. And along with me, I have my colleagues who will help us go through the sessions on the agentic AI.
Hey,
Would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
hi everyone. I'm Rahul Kumar, and I'm AI engineering leader, working in client engineering in the capacity of APAC. Great to see you guys.
My name is Victor Terpstra. I'm a solution architect in Expert Lab, and I'm a practice lead for decision optimization.
Hi everyone, my name is Joe Kazaya. I'm an AI engineer in the worldwide client engineering team.
And today's topic that we are going to focus upon is on the agentic AI. As we have seen in the throughout the day in earlier topics, we have built Agentrix, which is our solution for complex enterprise workflows by automating them and revolutionizing them with the help of agentic AI. So, in the purpose of an Agentrix is to take into the problems which we can solve by automating it not just with one single agent, but by making multiple agents work together. And we are in today's session, we are going to present it by on how multiple agent can solve the problem for decision optimization by working with uh, uh, your supply chain or the procurement or the routing issues. Also, we will love to show you some of the previews of other multi-agent workflows that we have put together for digital sales, and as well as on other domain specific agents like claim management in the insurance sector, as well as software development engineering in order to improve the productivity of the employees. If I can go to the next slide, please. So the idea behind Agentrix is that there are multiple agents which can do a single tasks, and that forms the base layer of creating this multi-agent system. However, in reality, a single agent can only do one single task. So in order for us to create this multi platform enterprise, we need to make multiple base agents work together. And that is what, as we can see in the next slide, is being multiple agents being put together by forming a workflow in what we say is a multi-agent reasoning system. Now, what are these workflows? These workflows are for audit, compliance, maintenance, SOC 2 certification, threat detection. So in Agentrix, we have a ready-to-go catalog that targets certain specific enterprise problem. These are real and hard problem and solved at scale so that enterprises can see the value right out of the box. And all this is accessible with the help of an intuitive user experience through which they can give a natural language command and build an agent without having to understand how to code the underlying AI engineering steps. The vision behind doing this is that business analysts and the users can create agents much more easily without having to understand how the underlying software works. For example, today's first session that we are going to start is an agentic flow on decision optimization, which requires a mathematical expert or modeling expert to know CPLEX if you have to do it today. But as Victor will walk you through, he will show that how with the help of a simple natural language based prompt, anyone who does not have a background in operation research or mathematical modeling can also achieve the same result by having an agent talk to this decision management tooling. So over to you, Victor.
So I will be talking tonight about a decision optimization agent. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make advanced decision optimization technology accessible to business users. And we're going to try to do that by allowing a business user to describe a business question in a natural language, and the agent is going to respond in business terms that have a meaning to this business users. What we like to do is we'd like to do that much faster than we can traditionally do, and as we'll see, with much less dependency on rare, high, and highly technical resources. Now, let's first actually back up a little bit on what do we actually mean with decision optimization, right? And how do agents actually play a role in here? So let me give you a prototypical example of a supply chain manager. Right? You're responsible for the efficient and effective operation of your company's supply chain. And you may have some questions about that, right? What does it mean to perform, an effective operation? So, for instance, a question would be, did we fulfill a customer demand in time? What were our inventory levels, right? Maybe we ran out of stock somewhere, or we have excess inventory out there. Very common questions going on. What are we spending on shipping? How are we shipping stuff? Now, what we're talking about here is descriptive analytics, right? Very traditional, by the way. What happened in the past, right? And there are agents that can handle these type of questions. But of course, the next problem comes is, okay, well, that was nice to know what happened in the past, but what do we think will happen in the next few weeks or months of years with our business, right? Will we manage to supply our customer demand? That may change, increase, decrease in certain areas, how that will happen. If we continue to operate the way we are, right, what's going to happen with our shipping? What are the conditions that may have changed? What may have happened with the cost in terms of raw materials, tariffs, shipping costs, etc.? So now what we're talking about is predictive analytics, right? What do we think will happen if we continue to operate this business as usual? Now, both of those sets of questions, right, may give us some items to think about, right? Maybe we are running out of inventory. We're not fulfilling demand. Then the next question comes, okay, what are we going to do about it, right? What are we going to change in our business to actually address and improve the operation of our supply chain? So, for instance, now we're going to ask questions about, well, how do we then say change or update our production plan given the changes in demand? Right? Where should we actually allocate inventory to make sure that we can faster ship items against a lower cost? Maybe we need to expand production capacity somewhere. Where do we invest our limited amount of dollars most effectively? Maybe we need to think about different vendors that we can look into in terms of supplying our products. What we're talking about here is prescriptive analytics using decision optimization. Now, this is nothing new. Okay, this technology has been around for literally decades, and it's about, in general, we were talking about problems that are required to make a lot of different decisions, typically around a limited set of resources. So your equipment, your production facilities, your transportation facilities, money, capital, people. How do we make decisions and lots of different decisions in concert together to improve our supply chain performance or our business performance? Now, this technology has been around for a long time. It's widely applied in ranges of industries, right? We're talking, for instance, about advertisement scheduling. We're talking about, of course, about routing, right? Truck routing, for instance. Think about Amazon deliveries. Think about financial optimization, where we optimize portfolios or campaigns. Think about production planning and scheduling, people allocation, shift planning, etc. And some of these applications have proven to be with very, very significant cost savings, right? Here are some examples. And I would actually say, the world would stop running without decision optimization. Many of these large companies, right, they cannot operate without it. Think about an airline, right? They would not fly without decision optimization. So if that's the case, right, why are we talking about an agent here, right? If it's so common, right, well-established technology, IBM, those CPLEX engines, very powerful products, successful implementation, mission critical. The downside has been traditional. It's difficult to use. And it's a bit of a caricature, but we typically need, and that's not really not uncommon, a PhD in operations research who understands the notion of the business, can combine that understanding the notion of the business, the mathematics and technology expertise. Someone who understands the business, can translate the business requirements into mathematics that an engine understands, and then also has the skills to actually encode that in a piece of software to actually implement and use the tools for this. And you need to do that, of course, specifically during development, but often also during maintenance. Business conditions change, questions might change that require tuning and adapting of these optimization models. And then what we're going to be looking at into is running what-if analysis. Right now we have a model. A very common way of using these models is to run various amounts of what-if analysis. And setting up this type of analysis, as we'll see, can be time-consuming and specialist work. So what are we trying to do here? Back to our objectives, we want to make sure that we allow a business user where they would start from in business terms, explain the type of questions they want to ask. Under the hood, we would like to want the agent to select the baseline model, then manipulate scenario data, prepare scenario data that reflects the type of what-if analysis the user would like to see and run. Then, optionally, if necessary, might even change the optimization model and modify or add constraints or objectives to the model, run the optimization, and then reflect on the numerical outcome and translate that back into business decision that impact analysis. Skip this for a second. Oh. Okay, let's look at an example here of an actual IBM client. Actually, it was a large industrial client where we did this, and we're talking about procurement. So that's a subset of supply chain optimization or supply chain management. In this case, we're talking about a procurement manager whose responsibility it is to sign contracts, right, for long-term, typically a year or multiple years, to select vendors that are going to supply our products that are mission critical for our operations. Right. So at the start, that manager would need to collect information about what are the products that we as a company need to purchase, where we need to purchase them, how much do we need to purchase them, what is our demand for the procurement. Then the second step is we go out to vendors, and these vendors would bid on these products, and to bid to fulfill that demand. Each vendor might have its own conditions, its own price, its own lead time, etc. So the procurement manager needs to prepare and collect all the data, and then needs to start making decisions about or prepare scenarios for making decisions about which of those vendors we like to select for which type of products and what locations. Now, the simplest approach would be for the procurement manager to simply select the vendors that are lowest cost. Right? That seems about, you want to typically reduce costs, so why not simply pick the lowest cost suppliers? The challenge with that is that we probably actually are going to make our business dependent on the very few nice and low cost, but possibly very far away vendors that we may never have done business with. Again, that are far away, that may have long supply lines and long lead times. And since we never done business with them, they may not have been in business very long. There is risk associated with that, right? What would happen if we then, in half a year or so, we need certain parts for our heavy equipment, and these parts cannot be delivered in time? That means, particularly in this business, is a heavy industry. Those huge investment, these host machineries come to a grinding halt simply because we were trying to save a few dollars here and there. So cost savings is actually not necessarily the core objective at all. A much higher important objective is operational continuity. But at the same time, of course, we don't want to spend too much, right? We also want to take into account things like agility, how flexible are our suppliers, understanding of the impact it has on inventory management and sustainability. So you can see here also a lot of different dimensions we have to take into account, and optimizing them is not a straightforward criteria. You can't easily say what an optimization model would like to have is a very precise objective. So the process this procurement manager goes through, again, is very typical for very many usages of decision optimization in industry. As we saw here, this pipeline that happens in the bidding process. I'm going to be focusing here particular on this step here, where we do a number of what-if analysis. We're doing a number of scenarios that we compute, and then with the goal to select kind of the best subset and to discuss that with the rest of the management of their company to be able to make a final decision. But in order to get this material, we would need to evaluate and select various scenarios. So let's look at some of how that would work. So at first step, a user would upload a data set that would contain the demand and the product, etc., and the bids that we have available. Then as a first step here, the user might want to see this is descriptive analytics, is an overview about what are we talking about here, the products, the vendors, the bids, etc. Let's get some insight in what the problem looks like. The real interesting thing starts here when our agents start to have an impact. So at step one, we're selecting one of a few predefined core models that kind of model the core capabilities of what we're looking for here, the core capabilities for the questions we're looking for. And then the next screen here, what we're seeing here is various styles, but in each style is one scenario. And you can see some descriptions over here, but this is where a natural language question has been entered. And for each of these scenarios, that is then being mapped into a combination of manipulation of scenario data that prepares for the what-if scenario, and possibly some changes and adoptions in the optimization model. We then select a set of scenarios that we want to compare and evaluate. The engine is then being run of those scenarios, and we get to a screen here where we can easily compare kind of the main KPIs of each of those scenarios. We can get some insights in what the differences are, say in the cost, in the risk, etc. But then if you may want to dive in a little bit deeper, you may want to have some specific questions about particular scenarios, so comparison between specific scenarios. So now we can ask some questions about what kind of to dive a bit deeper into the results. And just to show you here some more specific example of the type of what-if question we would have. Say, for instance, right, how can we minimize procurement costs? So that's what we're focusing on right now. But then, in order to cover the risk, right, we would say something like, let's make sure that not our single supplier exceeds a certain percentage of market share. I may have identified high-risk suppliers. I want to make sure that below a certain amount. And some condition that sometimes we may want to enable, disable, whether we, do we want to make multiple suppliers for each part, for instance. In that case, we would spread our risk, or maybe you want to just focus on a single supplier to make the business operation simpler. You see down the bottom here that the results, the numerical results, in this case, have been translated into text in business meaningful sense in terms of what does it mean for the cost, the changes in cost, in terms of the changes in risk, etc., supply time, and so on. We have here some other ones here about what would be impact on the procurement planning if demand, for instance, changes, right? And we see similar types of outcome. Or here, very current, of course, is the notion what happens with tariffs and how does that impact, in this case, our procurement plan. Simply summarize here around what we were trying to do. Again, we're trying to make all this relatively complex optimization technology just a lot more accessible and faster, right? Where we allow a business user to interact with these tools in their own language, can interpret the results in their business language. And where in particular here, we're looking for a much shorter time. The timeline that I was showing you here can take weeks and weeks of effort in preparing all these scenarios. And now we can do that much, much faster and much more frequently too, and a much more different amounts of what-if scenarios can be evaluated. And in that process, right, it's the agent doing the work, and we do not necessarily rely anymore on these sparse technical resources you might need nowadays. And of course, then in the process, right, we make this tool that promotes operational excellence much easier accessible for maybe smaller companies with a smaller, traditionally with a budget compared to the big applications. I'm going to conclude it over here.
Thank you, Victor. Okay, so I'll switch gears a little bit to talk about agentic AI for digital sales, which is one of the other agents that's going to be coming soon to the Agentrix platform. So to level set, let's talk a little bit about the SDR role, which stands for the sales development representative, which they're tasked with being able to reach out to various leads and engage them with various products that the company sells. So typically, the one of the main challenges that they have is that they have to deal with a lot of tools to be able to reach out to leads across different industries and be able to engage them and have them be interested in the products that the company sells. Again, some of the pain points are illustrated here, whether they're like they need to respond fast, there's always time pressure, they need to be able to research the company to provide useful information, which takes a lot of time. They have a lot of frustration with sometimes getting leads that are not very helpful or not very useful. So this captures a little bit of the frustration that the SDRs usually deal with. And what we want to do is really we want to try to improve that experience. And the focus is we would like to help the SDRs increase the capacity by reducing the amount of time that they spend per lead. We want them to also help them improve the conversion rate, which is translate the leads they engage with to actual opportunities that get progressed in the sales cycle. And another big one is here being able to provide this collective intelligence concept, which is basically learn best practices and experiences from across the SDR team and share it and embed it into the knowledge of agents in order to make that accessible to the overall community of SDRs. So to level set, to kind of help explain this, we want to look at the as-is process and then compare with what we would think the agentic solution would make this process look like. So starting out, you usually have hundreds of leads that come into the SDR is responsible for, and the first thing they do is they would go ahead and preview and prioritize these CIs based on the likelihood of success. Things that are low priority go to self-service kind of resources, while things that are higher priority, they get addressed by the SDR directly. And the first thing they would do is they would do customer research. And that's quite a complicated process, takes quite a bit of time because they have to go look different places like LinkedIn, web search, and others to try to learn more about the lead and understand their interests and priorities. And then after that, the SDR goes and creates a lead in the system. And then they would start an outreach cadence where they would reach out and try to engage the lead based on their interest and try to showcase some value of the various products that they sell. And that after that, they would go through many touch points, basically with the leads, where they would go back and forth and try to reach out to them and try to highlight the capabilities again. And that process is quite lengthy. It takes a lot of time. There are multiple touch points. And throughout this process, the SDR is focused on trying to qualify the lead, to validate whether their interest is real and what's focus area they're interested in. And after they qualify the leads, they would go ahead and create an opportunity in the sales platform of reference, and those would become the leads that then would translate to the next step in the sales cycle. So this process, as you can see, is quite complex. It involves a lot of tools. The SDR has to work with various tools, internal and external, to be able to provide to capture a perspective about the customer and be able to engage them in a meaningful way. And there are a lot of human interactions at various touch points in the cycle. So what we think is that with agentic AI, we can improve this process, and we refer to it here as SDR plus process. And first, to highlight that with this process, we believe we can handle a lot more leads because of a lot of the automation and intelligence coming from the agentic AI capabilities. So to start with, when we get a list of CIs or leads, we can rely on agents to be able to review and prioritize these CIs. And then that already accelerates and takes away some of the tasks that the SDR had to do manually. And then after that, we can also do a lot of research. So a lot of customer product research can be done by agentic systems, which we'll show a demo of in a minute. And again, that accelerates quite a bit. And then afterwards, when we have the leads that are of interest to proceed, we create a lead in the sales platform. And then we actually generate a contextual message based on all the research that was done. And that's exactly the demo I will show in a minute. At this point, then this agentic solution would engage the SDR. It'll provide a background, the context of what has been done in terms of the various leads here. And then the engagement process continues between the SDR and the customers with support from the agentic solution to do the qualification. And then the process continues in terms of creating opportunities in the sales platform and then be able to set up introduction calls and next steps in the sales cycle. So with this process, we believe that we can reduce the interaction points from, like, as you saw before, 9 or more to less than 2 in main ones. And then we prioritize high value leads autonomously. And we do the customer research, product research efficiently to be able to craft relevant messages to the customer that could interest them and engage them. Another key point here is that we avoid this tool sprawl. Basically, this agentic solution can work in the preferred channel that the SDR likes to work in, and it can be in one place that they go through and interact through that agentic solution. So here I'm going to show a quick demo of that, and I'll try to go through it a little bit quickly due to time constraints. But basically, you can start with the system that we built, which will step through things. And then first thing you do is like say, give me a list of client interests or leads that I may be interested in. And that will the agent will go ahead and look for the relevant information assigned to the SDR and return it here. And then when it comes back, I'm going to skip ahead. So this is kind of the list came up. So you can say, give me the list of prioritized CIs based on that. And then again, the agent will go ahead and is intelligent enough to use his AI in the backend to provide a prioritized list. And then basically, we got the prioritized list here. Then you go on and say, give me the details of that. And it'll go ahead and find the details of a specific CI of interest as shown here. And next step, you can say, okay, this is a lead that you gave me. Can you tell me a little bit about what the lead was about? And you can see here how it tries to understand what tool it should use, like parse and summarize the URL, then it pulls the information, and it returns the result as a succinct summary. You say, okay, this topic that the customer is interested in is about this topic of interest. In this case, it's about what's next.ai. And now next step is doing the research again, as if you remember the steps we did before. So it can go and leverage the various tools to do the research autonomously based on this company of interest here. And then it will return results for that. And then this already gives a SDR a lot of information very quickly, and it can do it at a much higher scale. And then lastly, you can say, draft me an email that can show how to reach out to the client with all this context, so the client would be interested when I'm telling them, and I'm not sending a generic email. So this is in a quick nutshell how we could do it. And we showed here a simple UI to illustrate this, but this can be embedded in, again, a preferred channel of choice, whether it's a CRM system or any chat interface or that the SDR would be most interested in. I think that's it for me. Lastly, I want to show a quick overview of the architecture, but I think due to time, I'll skip over and hand it over to Rahul to cover the last two topics here.
Thanks, Joe. Quickly, one of the prime things which we have is the auto claim insurance, which are going to quickly join the league of the agents. And we know that this part happens to be one of those things which is quite prevalent in insurance domain. So we know that auto insurance process itself happens to be quite manual centric and leads to uh, slow decision making. So this is where we are trying to bring in agents to work and automate the entire flow. So typically in this scenario, what we have done is we have brought in 4 different agents to automate the entire process. So one of them being the customer POV agent. Typically, it handles the checks and claims tracking. Then second being the claims processor agent, which typically goes and manages the backend tasks. And the information agent comes in and fetches the real-time external data. And last but not the least, the supervisor agent coordinates with all the agents in a good way and in tandem. So I'll quickly jump to the demo because of time constraint, just to show you what this agent can do for you. So this typically shows you that whenever we would like to maybe fetch an information around like what are those different options available for around the insurance. You can just key in those prompts and you would be able to get the entire spectrum of insurance available for you at your disposal. So you can see all the information coming to you. And the next step for any customer, or any customer happens to be, how can I go and log the claim? So this is where comes in, that how you can just submit a new claim prompt, and it will ask you multiple information which it would like to gather. One name, then it would be around the incidents, and finally it will also ask you the entire information, the summary of the information which the incidents comprises. And once done, the claim is going to be locked there, right there, and you are up and running with that. So, and you see, you can see that, and this will also fetch you a mail to ensure that you have got your claim locked. And next up is how you will go ahead and get the estimated cost for that. So you can see it by yourself that this is the entire summary with estimated cost is available for you. Next up happens to be around how you can just understand and figure out that what's the status of your claim as well as a customer. So that is another thing which typically every now and then we keep talking about it and we don't find a solution to. But here we can just see that after locking in the ticket, we can just fetch all the information around the claim. And this also tells you that how the breakup of all the claims has been, and whatever claim amount was uh, against this, what was the approved amount. So that also tells you and puts you always in comfort zone. Once you accept the claim, based on it, your claim is going to be processed and you will be up and running with that. So that's pretty much about the customer claims agent. That is going to be another thing which, and I'll quickly jump onto the next one, which with the time constraint is going to be around the business automation. Business automation is another area which we are currently uh, focusing on, which typically tells you that how we can gather the competitive intelligence through the agents. And here we have again multiple agents catering to it. One happens to be product search agents, typically designed to search for a specific product. Link search agents typically helps you understand the URLs and links for the similar products, and finally you will be able to get there. Finally, the comparison agents pull in the information which gives you SWOT analysis, plus also gives you the ratings and stuff to figure out how your competitive intelligence to drive your proposals. We can just quickly switch over to the quick demo, and it it will show you that the ABC Motors has multiple products line. So if you'd like to gather the information, then the information agent typically works in the background and gives you all the different uh, details available. And if you'd like to double click on certain product, you can just figure out that, and finally you would be able to get the required details for the certain products as well. Finally, for the competitor intelligence, we can just quickly jump over there, and finally you will have a SWOT analysis prepared, plus the ratings of each product against the competitor's product, and the strength and weaknesses as well. And that is very much essential for any businesses to draft the proposals. So that brings me to the end of this session. Hope you had enjoyed this session, and would look forward to get your questions, and you're having a great uh, dev day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Please do try out the links that we have shared for Agentrix with you guys. And do reach out to us in case you have any feedback on how we can make them even better and much more intuitive and valuable to your business. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.